That's not
Oh,
what we
well, you
want.
started the webinar.
I know, Reg, I can hear that. So I'm gonna stop, pause it right up here.
You go on vacation for a month and the whole place falls apart here, so. I welcome you to the Thursday, April 17th meeting of the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners and also the High Rock Homes LLC Board. And I'm going to start by calling the roll of commissioners. Reg Foster is here.
Jim Flanagan's here.
I guess you are.
Penny Kirk is here.
Jeffrey Engler is here.
And Janet Bennett is unfortunately ill and can't make it tonight. I'd like to, out of order, start with welcoming Jeff Engler here. He is our newly elected commissioner as of 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. So you're still in your honeymoon period. Yeah, right. This meeting. And one of the things that we do when we have a virtual meeting or hybrid meetings, you have to, a lot of roll call votes have to be roll call votes. You can't be just, raise your hands or something like that. So we have a order of precedence that starts with the chair, the vice chair, and the next senior member, which is Penny, and then you're the last here. So, we just do it that way and we save over an hour. We save over a period of a meeting, 10 or 15 minutes, just not doing it any other way. I will just note that this meeting is hybrid, as originally enabled under the open meeting law by chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022. And unlike what the meeting says, agenda says, it was extended until March 31st, 2025, but it was also extended again by Governor Healy last March 27th, and is now permissible until June 30th, 2027 to meet in this fashion. I also wanted just to note that the Secretary of the Needham Housing Authority provided adequate notice of this meeting by posting and preparing and posting our agenda with the clerk of the town of Needham on April 11th. And so we are officially in business. First, I just wanted to, again, welcome Jeff to the board. And Jeff, is there anything you want to just say in, other than hi or anything else about you and who you are and so forth?
Only that I look forward to having the opportunity to contribute to the board. I've lived in Needham for 5 years. Some of the people here are familiar, a little bit of familiar faces, a few of you I've talked to. Those of you that don't know me, I have 20 years of background in multifamily mixed income housing, and I'm hoping to be able to leverage some of that experience for the benefit of the board and board. So new to this, I have a lot to learn. I have an esteemed panel that I look forward to leveraging, but I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Great, good.
Thank you.
And then Penny received a letter from you, or an emailed letter from you earlier this afternoon. So that comes under announcements from the chair that could not be anticipated, that came in within 48 hours. So I'd like to just give you an opportunity to tell everybody what the letter is about.
The letter says that as soon as a replacement for me can be found and appointed, I will be resigning from the board.
And I share that. I think we all share that. We all know we can't celebrate Penny this meeting because we haven't prepared to do that. But we'd like to invite you back, certainly at the next meeting. And make sure that you are sent out in style. Because Penny's been here longer than almost anybody except Cheryl. which is a long time, and Penny, I think it was, when did you start as a resident commissioner here? No, first the resident, coordinator, yeah, services coordinator, 2011 or 12 or something like that.
Let's see, it was here when I started. Then I got married in 2007. And I started working for Needham Housing the next month, in May. We'll be married 18 years on Monday. And I started in May. We were married in April.
So we got married to the Needham Housing Authority and to Ed Scheidler in the same week. I don't know. So that's something. So, we will get into more, of your background and make sure we have a proper celebration. When, so sad to see you go. You know, things change. I do want to use this as an opportunity, though, to say, there is a process that, is, provided for in chapter 121B, and I'm just gonna I haven't sent this around to board members yet, so I just printed out copies here. And I've got the extra one for the Cheryl, and I have some extras in case anybody in the audience wants a copy here as well. Please come up and get it. Let me keep one for myself here. And, in a nutshell, I've yellow highlighted the, applicable section. This is the section 5 of chapter 121B, which covers, you know, boards of commissioners in cities. Cities and towns and everywhere in the Commonwealth. And the yellow, if you look on the second page, the yellow highlighted section says, vacancies other than by reason of expiration of term shall be filled for the balance of the unexpired term, which in Penny's case is 2028, I think, right? Yes, okay. In the same, and these are elected commissioners, not the tenant commissioner that we're talking about here, by the, according to the provisions of section 11 of chapter 41. So if you look at the third page of this thing is an excerpt of chapter 11, chapter 41, section 11, yellow highlighted, and it says basically the process is that in terms of the appointment, it's done by the Board of Selectmen, the select persons, the select board, I guess is what we call it, and the Needham Housing Authority Board meeting together and joint meeting and voting as, you know, 10 individuals, since Penny will still be on the board. Penny's resigning effective when her new successor is appointed, and we certainly need her because we've got a lot going on right now. That's the, you know, the legal reference, you know, just for everybody's benefit. And what that means is that I tomorrow will send a letter to the board, the select board chair and the town manager, and a copy of Penny's letter, and saying we need to put that process into place. The town's process is to advertise the availability of the position as widely as we can, so it will be a line item, an article, whatever you want to call it, in the news you need to have, you know, weekly newsletter, bulletin of the town. I imagine the Observer will note it in a future article, as well as the Needham channel, Needham local weekly newsletter. And then anybody can self-nominate themselves, or they can be nominated, you know, although I would talk to somebody, the person that you're nominating first, make sure they're interested here. If there's a number of candidates, or, you know, candidates need information, then we'll probably arrange some sort of, here's what it means to be a housing authority commissioner in Needham, and this is what's going on session. And then last time was a few years ago, many years ago, that I actually was originally appointed to the Housing Authority Board in 2009 to fill somebody's seat, I forget whose, Shirley Pratsky's seat, that was the one. And so what the town often does is they have one of the select board members are in charge of appointments to committees in towns in general. And they often invite the candidates to come in and talk informally, or, send in their resume or any other information they want to do. And then at some point there'll be that joint meeting, probably in and around an existing select board meeting on Tuesdays. And I would predict, but I don't know for sure, that this meeting wouldn't take place, this joint meeting, until after town meeting's over, because everybody's just super busy, up until town meeting's over, which is not over, it's 5th, probably May 12th, Monday, May 12th would be the last session of town meeting, so briefly and, generally that's how it all goes. Any questions from the commissioners? Any questions from the audience about that?
Is that person gonna be an acting commissioner? until
No,
the next-
fully appointed. It's appointed to fill out the unfinished term, yes,
And then after that, there would be an election?
that's right.
How long is Penny's term? Is it another?
2028, I think, is when I, looked at you, because you were reelected a year, 2 years ago, yeah. So there'd be 3 more years on the term, roughly speaking. Hmm? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think any resident of Needham who, I think you might have to be a voter, but other than that, you have to be registered to vote, but, I'm not even sure about that, but certainly you have to be a resident of Needham. And yes, it can be a tenant. We do have a tenant commissioner slot that's reserved for tenants, that's filled right now by Janice Bennett. But that doesn't mean you can't have 2, residents.
But she was elected.
No, she was originally elected, and then the state finally put in place a 2014 regulation change that required there to be a tenant commissioner. We've always had a tenant commissioner for as long as I've been around. Cheryl was the tenant commissioner a long time,
I was.
in
I
her
was
youth,
appointed,
she
by
doesn't look
board
that
at
old,
that
but yeah,
time.
definitely. And you were served as a tenant commissioner
And I
several
ran
years.
for 2 terms.
And so it's always been the practice of the housing authority, going back at least that far, to make sure we had a tenant commissioner, even though it wasn't required by state law. Now it's required by state law. And so at the time was DHCD, now HLC, put in a procedure for what would happen if you already had a tenant commissioner, which is Janice. And so you basically, say you put in form with them and say, we already got a tenant commissioner. So, that's going to become the official tenant commissioner slot, because they're staggered 5-year terms.
And shouldn't she have to have been replaced if she was leaving the elected position?
No, not under this procedure, but it's all spelled out in regulations here, but no. The board can designate that person and the select board can exceed to that existing person. And so since we had a perfectly, we didn't, that is the official tenant commissioner position, Janice is. When her term is up, then the procedure under the new state regulations is that the tenants associations nominate candidates. Let's say Janice didn't want to be the tenant commissioner again, just for the sake of argument. Then the the resident boards, the tenants boards would nominate people. And so that's, if we have a Linden's Chambers Board, Residence Board, we have a Seabed's Cook one, both boards could nominate somebody. If we wound up having a High Rock Estates, residence, which we don't right now, but we used to a few years ago, the select board then takes in all those nominations and goes through that same sort of process of interviewing and vetting and so forth. But it just, nominees who have been nominated by tenants associations to the select board, and then the select board picks, if there's more than one, picks who the actual new tenant commissioner is to replace the that in this case, Janice and her 5-year term would be replaced by that new person that was, but that appointment is made by the select board, not the housing authority board. So, again, it's all spelled out in one of these gory, DHCD, PHNs, public housing notices that, we can send around if anybody's interested, so. All right, that's a little bit of a detour at the beginning of the meeting, but, yes. Oh, that's the, not coming from, give me the, it's plugged into your computer and you shut your computer here, so. Yeah. Is there enough room to reach down here? Here, slide it under my. You should have been able to hear all that. Here comes the video. I gotta turn the video on.
Sue Beasley says she can hear, but she has no video.
Yeah, there we go. And we'll put this over here. I'm gonna leave this over here because we need to. Okay. All right, so we're now at the beginning of the agenda finally here. Do we have any resident input from our tenants association or any other residents? Ross, go ahead, please.
I'm speaking as president, speaking for the Residents Association.
The Linden Chambers.
Yes, sir.
Remember, we have a new commissioner, so you're educating him as we go along here, so, okay.
Linden Chambers Residents Association. And we have amongst ourselves, the board has had some communications and we're planning on some meetings. And this is a private discussion. We're a private organization, okay? We haven't gone public with a lot of the things that we're talking about. And anybody is, but I'm speaking for the Linden Chambers Residents Association.
Not for me.
And that's right, but I'm president, I'm speaking for the organization, and I'm the only one that has that provision, okay? So, but you're free to, everybody's free to say whatever they want. There were a couple of things, last two meetings, we really didn't have a chance to speak. Kalpana spoke about, she wanted to have the gallery presented, as you can see, there are options. And I brought that up too, regarding the fact that we've tried to bring a lot of residents' issues to the front of the meeting. So they're there, they don't have to wait 2 hours through things that they might not want to listen to. So the idea was to push a lot of resident issues to the front, including speaking and including recognizing who was in the audience. Now, I know Jim had some questions about that, privacy concerns, and you said you wanted to take it up under advisement. So I don't know whether you thought about that at all, whether that was a continuing issue for you, but I think, the practice has been to let us know who is in the audience. That you're running the meeting, you have the technology, you know who's there, we don't know. So often we ask who's in the audience and so forth. Let's see. Yeah, there were a number of issues that I brought up or residents brought up that were continued during the meeting. And it was a topic that I was interested in, the organization was interested in, but we weren't able to participate. I was remote, I tried to click in, nobody heard it. So I think we should, since we have an organization and some structure, that one of the things that we're allowed is to be heard on these matters, on the agenda, matters that are on the agenda, not things that would be personal, subject to a complaint or a grievance or something like that, but something of the common interest. But we have to come to some sort of understanding. I'd like to be able to raise my hand and be recognized on when some of the agenda items come up, if that's going to be allowable. And we'll we're gonna be considering starting up a residence advisory board or a design review committee, something like that, so that we can review not just some of the designs, but be in receipt of communications that we're not hearing about, like there's property value, there's property condition report here from a year ago. You know, I've been requesting that at TCHOC and a lot of other meetings, so it's nice to see that the work was done. I was beginning to see that maybe, with all these requests and not getting any response, maybe the work wasn't done, so it looks like it has been done. But we'd like to have, also like to establish some office space here to keep things. We have a couple of boxes here. Greg has suggested that we are offered to use the office, but we don't have a key to that. So we're still would like to have 180D considered. As I understand it, it's under a waiver. Now it's not being used for housing. It's not available for housing, for rental. So it should be available for use. The contractors, Springwell, they have space. I think the residents should have, you know, be accommodated in the same way. We did talk about the potholes that become an issue. It's like a cause. I was very interested in hearing how the policy discussions can lead to potholes. We're having a lot of discussions and about policy development and so forth. And it would be nice if we could have the policy discussion lead to fixing the potholes. What they've done is we had a meeting, we walked around, Greg and Cheryl and I, and looked at things, and yet yesterday, when they're doing the blowers and everything, they're blowing out the gardens. So this is killing the gardens. It moves all the leaves and everything into the drains. So we need to examine that. You know, the drains need to be cleared to get the water to run out, because we're in a flood zone, or, you know, it's.
So I just want you to let you know we're at sort of 5 minutes. These are just general comments.
Yeah,
And
there are a
so
number of
can you
I'll
wrap up a little bit?
Air conditioning policy would be good, a gardening policy that has some, it was clear before, but, you know, I'd like to meet maybe with Cheryl and the staff and the residents. We could have coffee or something like that and talk about that. I brought up the matter of tree removal. We still have a big budget item of trees that are being removed, and I'd like to ask again, where does the Needham Housing Authority stand on trees? You know, it's going to be a big issue. Public shade trees. Do we have any policy on that? I know we're our own entity, but
So we got started late and we got to move on. This is just for general comment from people who don't have a chance for general comment. I would just ask, are we meeting now with the tenants association between meetings? Because that's probably where all this stuff
When they
should be
request
discussed.
a meeting, I always meet with them.
Yeah, so did it happen? Is it happening?
We've met 3 times already,
Yeah,
but
but
as I said.
before this meeting, but after last meeting,
No,
okay? Because I think it's more effective if we maybe do something like that.
I agree.
Because we only have a certain amount of time here. And then I hear all the rest of your comments, and I'm sorry I wasn't here last month to help out with the technical support thing. We still need to do better with that, with the hybrid meetings. So let me recognize some other people. Is there anybody else here?
Two other points, if I may, just briefly, 2 sentences.
Briefly, please.
One is asbestos. Like to get some sort of idea of what the issues are there. Sometimes they have remedial work and sometimes larger items. And the other one, the residents have questions about is the trucks. Some people that are have access to or look at the budget and so forth. Silverado, $70,000 with a snowplow. We've got 3 snowplows and we're buying a 4th snowplow. I don't
Okay.
understand it.
All right, great.
Anyway,
Marlene, go ahead.
Yes.
And help for
Yeah.
Jeff, who are you on the tenants association?
Yes, I am Marlene Costa. I am the treasurer of the Linden Tenants Organization, Linden Chambers Residents Association. Well, there's a lot to discuss. One question I had is, are these meetings here for Needham Housing Authority, are they being recorded? Are they going to be available on the Needham channel? Because all the other governing bodies in the town of Needham they record their meetings and it's available for public, for anyone who's interested in Needham. So I just wanted to know that I know the meetings
Yes,
are.
yet the answer is that they are being recorded, and if they're not available, we need to figure out why that is. Anything else?
Oh, no, I have several issues. So,
Well, so we've already had like quite a readout from the president of the tenant association here, and have you met?
He doesn't represent me.
He doesn't
I'm
represent.
also a tenant here.
Okay,
As
so
well as
your 3 minutes as just a tenant is all, it's now down to 2 minutes, so keep going.
Oh my God, I think that's very rude.
No, it's not rude. It's our policy, as you probably know, because we've had this discussion before. Please keep going.
Well, your response to me shouldn't be included in that 3 minutes, and I think it's very.
All right, I will give you, go
Because
in.
the treasurer.
No, the tennis association has already spoken here. So as an individual, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Please.
Wow, this is that, do you want to go first? I mean, no, all right, well, there's so many things. One thing, the tenant participation policy, it says that it's only once every 3 months. There's no provision. We only are allowed, according to this policy, to meet quarterly with the executive director. When Cheryl leaves, this policy is going to stay in place. I think we need more than one meeting every 3 months. As far as the waste removal, first of all, according to the policy that's in the packet, we have approximately 30% of the waste barrels are the old ones. They don't open, they don't work. The reason why there's trash everywhere is because 30% of the receptacles don't even open. Another reason is the waste management company you contract with, they don't empty all the waste. They leave 1 or 2 barrels in several of the buildings, at least in chambers that I know.
Have
for a
you
fact,
have you
filled with
put a
garbage.
work order in for the non-functioning waste containers? No.
Waste-
Did you hear my question?
No, it did not.
Have you put a work order in for the non-functioning waste receptacles?
But the waste management.
Yes or
company
no?
Doesn't empty all of them either. So
Okay.
someone could
Did you put in a work order to do something on them?
Don't you? I mean, you pay them out of your budget. They
Excuse
should
me,
remove the garbage.
excuse me, did you hear me talking? Please don't talk over me,
Not trying to.
and I now have something to say unless you heard what I said just now.
That I can put in a work order about the broken barrels.
No, and then I said also if it isn't being emptied frequently enough, that too, because it doesn't do anybody any good for you to wait once a month to come and tell the board about it. It should be go in right away. All right, what else?
Because there's an
So,
official policy
keep-
here in the packet.
We're just considering, it's not official, it's a draft. As you can see, it says draft on it, okay? We're gonna consider it and your input is valued. Is there anything else? Because you're,
Yes, first of all, yes, I'd like to welcome Jeffrey Engel. So I'd like to know what motivated you since to.
no, I'm sorry, that's not, you can ask him after the meeting, okay?
All right, what about his development company and how that may
You
affect?
can ask him after the meeting.
Okay, so we can't ask any of those questions.
No,
Okay, let me see if there's anything else.
but you can ask the questions, please do, you know?
You told me I could not ask any. of
No, after the meeting, did you hear what I said? Okay,
those. Okay, well, the ongoing issue with the driveway, I know that it's an incredible hazard.
is that the same issue that,
It's been, well, last month, Cheryl said there was a.
it's
plan in
terrible,
place.
as you know.
No, this is separate. She said there was a plan in place.
I think
She
we're
sent
gonna-
an email.
We'll
but
ask her
those
to begin. All right,
And now I want to make sure we're going to discuss what those plans are because it affects the health and safety of all the residents.
I
here. It's
agree.
Not just me. I'm speaking for 160 people here that they have to drive over that.
Yep.
And up over curves and you get your whole tire
I
stuck
get
in
it.
it. It's a hazard.
anything else? Because I think this don't
That's it.
wait for board meetings to bring this stuff up,
I don't even
you
get
know.
3 minutes.
All right.
Thank
I
you
got
very
screws
much.
in my back because of this property,
Okay,
okay?
It's a
All right.
hazard to the residents and it needs to be
About the law.
addressed.
Jim, you look like you have something to say.
Be addressed.
Yeah,
I
It's
have
not
an
funny.
upbeat, please, my turn. I have an upbeat invitation for each and every person in the room. Take a ride down to the Vazio Park and you will solve the Chambers problem driveway.
Dustin.
And in this little packet here, Deputy I know you're last, but you're.
Jim, could you please go sit down? Thank you.
I
yeah.
wanted to present my pebbles, and the only way I could get them is.
Please give
walk
it
up
to
and
the,
get ready.
please give it to
Please, let me
the,
talk.
please give it to the executive director. Board members don't do things about pebbles here. You know,
It's
but
about the driveway.
It's
I
the
get it.
solution to the problem.
Driveway.
When I drove into
do you
DeFazio,
mind sitting down?
I like standing up, I
Okay.
have bad
He
knees.
has the right to stand.
I have 2 knee replacements.
Okay, this first time you've done that, and I feel a little
You're
overshadowed
talking over
for you.
me now.
No, I think you would sit down, please.
I have bad knees.
I'm sorry. I would like
I'm
you to sit down.
handicapped.
If you're gonna yell, I'm gonna call on somebody else, okay?
With respect, people have a right for reasonable accommodation. but
I'm
we-
sorry, I don't like it.
Yes.
I feel it's menacing when you do that. Can you just- Can you please just make your comments without yelling, please?
I'm a little hard of hearing. I don't need to yell.
No, you were speaking with a lot of emotion, so would you please speak? Yes, so you're suggesting that, the executive director and our maintenance head look at that surface that was put in there, right? That's your point. All right, anything else?
Yes, they have a 5-mile-an-hour zone. And also the crushed stone is there. And the crushed stone is a sample that is in that little cup that I brought.
Great,
I think it is a solution to the problem. Because the way it is now, you are opening yourself up to a lawsuit. Tenants injured, cars into the potholes. I just ask you and plead with you, get down to DeFazio Park. You will get a broad
yeah,
difference in probably a
yeah,
solution.
don't wait for the next board member meeting to have a good suggestion like that. Please send it in right away, in
I
between.
can't hear what
yeah.
you're saying. You're speaking too soft.
Please don't wait for monthly board meetings make good suggestions, okay?
Talked about it the last month, the month before, and the month before that. With all
No, I
due
don't want that, I'm
respect.
sorry.
You can review.
All right, I'm sorry, you had your saying.
For several months. It isn't just today. We
Put it in writing then,
We
but
want to
please.
take on the plans that Cheryl sent an email saying.
You already made that point, Marlene, didn't you?
I just want to be clear.
No, we need to try to have these meetings move along and take a very short amount of time. No, Marlene, it's not your turn. I want to get to anybody else who has comments. Go ahead.
The first thing I'm gonna say is.
Please say who you are
My
for our
name is
new,
Helen Yurgosian,
yeah, to our new
and I
commissioner.
live now in Linden. I used to live in Chambers, so I've gotten to sample both sides of the aisle here. And one of the things I wanna say is coincidentally, Jim, I was at DeFazio yesterday. Driving through the 5-mile-an-hour thing. And then it says.
No, sorry, let's not have a dialogue back on. You have a new, please address the chair.
It's loaded. with
Okay.
potholes
Yeah,
Right now.
just
So bad. it's
make
like
your
a movie.
comment. Please make your comment here, not have a dialogue, okay?
I'm
Yeah.
telling you that, to save you guys a trip, I was just there,
Yeah,
and I said, holy moly, I thought Chambers was bad, look at this place. Big holes, potholes, you go down that aisle, the second one in, and it's, boom, I was like, I'll never go through here again, it was like a mobile field, anyways, let me get to what I wanna say tonight. I got sidetracked. In light of the recent passing of President Carter, he
Yes.
always said that, you know, words have meaning, right? And I wrote this when I was sick in December, by the way, this wasn't something recent, I was home with something and I had time and I was thinking about these things. And I want to talk about the commitment to the community. Because this is a community, everybody. And decency and good character is so important. Not only for yourself, but when you represent others. And you're in a high position like being a commissioner or even an LTO or anything else. You want to always have decency and maintain your good character. That matters. That's what you take when you leave here. Your character, your reputation, of course, your value, and your signature as well, right? But what I want to say is, you put ego aside when you leave. and people first somehow doesn't use their position to gain personal desires. Has to be for the common good for everyone. You know, someone might feel personally against something or for something, but let's put that aside. You have to look at the whole community and get a consensus of what's best for the health, safety, and welfare for the common good of everyone. Okay, that's primo with me. And instead of moving forward, people need to be more positive and truthful. Working towards the good of the community, and not just the community that exists, but thinking for everyone. I pray that folks see the need of the community now and for the future of the community, with a plan to improve folks' right to affordability and to remain in the community for future generations. This would promote a stronger, resilient, inclusive, and committed community that will grow together. Let's lay the foundation now to be part of the solution for today and for tomorrow. More will be invested wisely, more people will be invested wisely as we establish a solid community of friends and family, a community that's unique, a unique place for generations to build together. And we can achieve it if we stick together, despite what everybody's little differences are. United we stand, divided we fall. And the last thing I want to say is we're laying this foundation now to be part of that solution. Again, I'll say it for today and for tomorrow. So I mean, we see enough conflict on our TVs and news. Let's not be divided here too.
Thank you, Helen. Appreciate it. I see Sue B has had her hand up patiently. If you unmute yourself, Sue, we should be able to hear you. Sue? Should be Sue. Can you hear me? You have your hand up there. And it says talking is permitted. Let me ask you to unmute here, okay? Let's see if this works.
It's not
There you-
allowing, no.
Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi, Jeff. I'm Sue Biazizo. I'm a resident of Seabed's Way, longtime resident of the Needham Housing Authority. And just to clarify, when I came here in 1991, we did have a resident commissioner, Ed Kalan. So a long time. But anyway, I am asking on last minute, asking on behalf of one of my neighbors, who is, their building has had a bug issue. And she was wondering if there was enough money in the budget to have, keep like a routine, pest control going. I would say maybe for, at least the summertime, if not into the fall. So I'm asking on her behalf. And the other thing is, Cheryl, you and I have discussed something about one of the services that the residents both here and across town have been getting that doesn't seem to be working out. So I'd like to give you a call tomorrow because I just had something more to add to it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you, Sue.
Okay,
Is that it, Sue?
that's it.
All right, great. Anybody else put their hands up online that wishes to speak? I see no other hands up. Yes? Okay, yeah, Ed.
My name is Ed Scheidler, speaking as a Needham resident. And I would like to say that, well, first of all, welcome, Jeff. And how fortunate this community is to have somebody with Jeff's knowledge and background and a wonderful, wonderful addition to the Needham Housing Board of Commissioners. So again, Jeff, welcome.
Thank you.
And I wasn't around to say thank you to Ed last month because I took a first vacation, first in a very long time. Thank you, everybody made that possible. Although it was really an intervention on the part of my family, like a drug addict. We're gonna take you out of the country here or else. But Ed, I would like to invite you to come to our May meeting, which is May 15th meeting, which is also our annual meeting by coincidence, along with Penny, so we can make sure that we roast you appropriately at the same time that we do Penny here, so. Most of these maintenance issues and so forth have been noted down, and I'm gonna ask Cheryl to address them when we get to the part of the agenda that we talk about our new formula funding that has just been approved. One of our big issues has always been for decades that there's not enough money to get everything done, but you know, I certainly agree that things like that, especially the paving out there, we've got, you know, it's something we gotta work on, but why don't we wait until we get to that part of the agenda? And let's get through some of our routine stuff here at this point. So moving on to agenda item A. We have bill check warrants of, is it $155,743.36 for the Needham Housing Authority bills and checks. I make a motion that we approve that.
Second.
Second from Penny. Discussion, any questions by anybody of anything in the packet there? And Jeff, why we have so much detail in the packet and how we do things, how we make a note is one of the things we need to talk a little bit more about, why it exists this way. Hearing no further discussion, I'm gonna call the roll call. Actually, we don't have to do a roll call vote because Janice isn't here. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, none, that passes unanimously. Now the High Rock Homes LLC bill schedule and check warrant, $27,334.85. I make a motion that we approve that.
Second.
Any discussion or question for the executive director? Hearing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none, so that passes. Now, again, for Jeff's benefit, and all of our benefit, Cheryl, 2 or 3 months ago, I think, said, you know, we should really do things like the select board does. We have a lot of things that can be routinely improved and don't need us to bring them up one by one by one. Anybody can pull the, you know, an item off the agenda, consent agenda. Otherwise, we will just all vote with them on them at the same time. One resolution for all these things. So we have the special board meeting minutes of 3/4/25. We have the regular meeting minutes of 3/20 last month. And then we have a bunch of reports that we get monthly, metric reports and from not only Cheryl, but also our fee accountant. Anybody need to discuss anything there? I'll make a motion that we approve all the items in the consent agenda that need approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Penny. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, there are none. I will just note there's a minor typo on the special board meeting minutes and the closing time that just needs to be fixed. Otherwise, I wasn't at the last month's meeting, so I don't know if there's anything wrong there. All right, next item in the agenda is the program management review is what PMR stands for, unpublished desk audit rating summary. There's a one-pager in the agenda, in the packet, on page 66, but it will represent some more extensive informal review that does, and they've decided, the HCD has decided to do an informal review every year and a formal review every other year. So Cheryl, what's this all about?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As our board chair said, the PMR, this is an unpublished record. I am meeting with my housing specialist, Robert Pelletier from EOHLC on April 24 to talk about the items on this list. The documents include corrective actions for our 667 program in the area of operational guidance.
Page 66.
Tenants accounts receivable, board meeting trainings, certification and reporting submissions, adjusted net income, operating reserves. And as I said, I don't know where, what the corrective action would entail until I meet with Bob Pelletier, who will, talk with me about, the areas in which corrective, action is noted.
So, so Cheryl's just giving the board information item, and looking at page 66, the summary page is what she received, and she's gonna go over, they actually provide specifics, but it basically says there's no findings with respect to the review of our occupancy, which means we're keeping the units, turning over them pretty quickly, as we already know, because we monitored that. But wherever it says corrective action, it means that they have something they want to tell us about. It's a quality assurance mechanism that DHCD put in place a number of years ago. One of the corrective items is board member training. So I'm not quite sure what that one means, because I know Jim has been taking the board training courses. How far along are you here, Jim, on that?
I've done all the mandated EOHLC one,
Yeah.
and the Mass NARO, I'm 4 out of 5 on.
4 out of 5. That's very good board training there.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, no, good on your part doing it, and I recommend it. As something, one of the things we'll be providing to Jeff here. But who knows what it is, and Cheryl's gonna find out. So we'll have that on the agenda next month, okay? Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are the audit findings recommendations or are they mandates?
They're not like a traditional annual audit finding like an auditor. It's a more of a management
That's
audit. It's management audit. It's not. So it might be as simple as just you filed some quarterly reports, you filed them late, like on, or it could be something, we'll find out what it is here, but it's more of a management audit, speaking in, CPA speak, than it is a financial audit, which is done by our Marcom, or whatever their new name is here, our auditor here. Okay, moving on, we got D, review and approve the amendment number 9 for our contract financial assistance, and that begins on page 67, the next page here. And Cheryl, what's going on with here, and a little more explanation what formula funding is for everybody's benefit here. What
The
is it?
formula funding covers our mod project, our capital improvement projects. And this amount is an amendment to that budget. These projects are
Why is it called formula funding?
formula funding. I'm sorry.
It's called formula funding because a long time ago, this is the money we use to fix potholes, like everything we were just talking about before, and, paint things and ramps and, and they have a formula that I don't understand, but they come up out of thin air saying, this is how much you're owed. And that also has to do with how generous HLC or the governor's office is in the budget every year. So lately, the last 2 or 3 years, there's been quite a increase in the amount of formula funding. I look at these numbers, $244,000 for this whole complex, all 150 units and all then I go, boy, that's not a lot of money when you divide it by 152 and you look at that, we have 11 acres of grounds here. But believe it or not, this is a generous increase relative to what we were getting before, which is why everything is falling apart around here and why Greg and the staff just do amazing things, but mostly with, baling wire, duct tape, and Band-Aids here. So, yeah, go ahead.
So that's formula funding,
Yeah.
and it covers the years 2026, 27, and 2028. What's new on this award is aging in place, 30,400,
And what's that?
and that we don't know. So
Oh.
I am going to get more information on that and share that with you at our next meeting. But as I said earlier, these cover modernization projects for 667, 1, 2, and 3, and 689. For 2026, it's really going to cover our 689, which is our developmental disability project on 1415 Great Plain
Our
Avenue.
halfway house there,
And that project will include kitchen upgrade, roof replacement, an ADA ramp with walkway and a back patio. So we're doing some of those things now at 689. They've really been a little neglected. So, that home is built in I think 80, yeah. So we're doing a lot of capital improvement works with that house. So that's our formula funding. I, as your chief executive financial officer, has signed a contract with the state. I'm not sure if you want to.
I don't think we need to go into it in
anything?
detail. It's boilerplate. And we're required to sign it or we don't get the money.
Correct.
Yeah. And you might want to say something about the RCAT briefly
So
as
I am
well.
working with.
What does RCAT stand for? What is it?
It's the regional, they provide us technical assistance
Mm.
on our, capital project, regional capital assistance, team.
Yeah.
RCAP. And so they provide assistance with us. These projects are all in our Cap Hub module with the POHLC. And so they are doing the planning of the projects. They're seeking out the architects, putting together the scope of work, et cetera. And our RCAP helps us to make sure that those documents are in place as the planning moves forward.
So they have expert engineers and other experts in construction and so forth.
POHLC does.
Well, the RCAT provides,
RCAP provides technical assistance.
That's what I
on our
meant,
capital
yeah.
projects.
yeah. And that was put in as a reform around 2012, to my knowledge. It didn't exist before, and it's for smaller housing authorities that can't afford to have that kind of
During the
support on, we can't have that on staff. We don't have enough money for that. And it's really worked out very well, in my
It really
opinion.
does.
They are doing an excellent job of making sure our dollars stretch as far as they can, and we don't wind up wasting any of the
They do the bidding,
few
they
dollars.
select the low bidder, we have, meetings on costs, so it's really a great. program.
And the projects we contemplated funding goes in with the budget that we submitted for 2025, right? There's a list of capital projects.
Well,
right?
this is an amendment to.
This is
that.
an amendment to that, so it'll allow us to fund more projects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any board member questions about that, comments? Anything else?
And so, going forward, it's my hope that I would sit down monthly with our local tenant organizations to talk about this process. It is a tedious process. It doesn't happen right away. And I would like to keep them updated on how the process is rolling out so that they have a clear timeline on when projects for Chambers Street will begin, et cetera. So that's my goal.
Okay. And, let's move on to the next agenda item here. We have a door replacement proposal to approve.
Yes, sir.
What's going on with that?
So, yes, Mr. Chair, so this is, again, our 689 projects, our Matthews House Developmental Disabilities Program. And this is replacing, exterior doors, for that unit. Again, it's gone through the bidding process and EOHLC, who has hired an architect and who has put the project out to bid and selected the low bidder. So this is what this documentation is about. It does ask that you approve, the low bidder, the low bidder's quote, and that we will then submit those minutes. I will upload those minutes in in a CAP hub, or the document package that EOHLC maintains on these projects.
Any questions from the commissioners about this before we take a vote? Discussion? I make a motion that we approve this contract award. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I think Jim got that one. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or none? I'm gonna add another sentence or two, Jeff sentence or two, Engler here, and I think this benefits everybody because we don't often go over this, but we operate Matthews House, which I believe has eight beds.
Yes.
It's congregable living, so it's not 8 apartments, okay? But it has room for 8 for people with, we are under contract with the Department of Mental Health or the DDS to provide this. And so we sort of provide all the maintenance services and the upgrades like what we just talked about. But the actual residents that live there are all come off of waiting lists and things that are programs that are managed by DDS, Department of Developmental Services, I think is what it is. So, okay, next, Executive Director's report. Item F. You're up again.
Okay, so I have contracted with a company out of Wellesley titled Express Staffing. And I'm using them to fill some vacancies. We have not filled the Assistant Executive Director position. I've contracted with them to hire a executive assistant until the Assistant Executive Director position is filled. The young man's name is Michael Forsad. He's actually on our meeting tonight. He has a legal background, very extensive legal background, and he has been working with us for about a week and a half now and has provided a tremendous amount of support to me in getting a lot of things done. So I'm really happy with his work. We are still going to continue the process of finding an assistant executive director. But meanwhile, we have someone that's helping me get some of the policies completed and some of the EOHLC reporting done, which he's done a great job at that, as well as some of the HUD reporting as well. So I've also hired a temporary maintenance person to help us to get up to speed with our grounds and a lot of work that we're doing here. Greg has expressed that the gentleman is working out really well. He has an HVAC background and certification. So we're pleased to have him. He's eager to work and enthusiastic about helping us with a lot of the issues that we're
What's his
grappling
name?
with. His name is Julio. Yeah,
With a J?
with a J.
Okay.
And then I'm also using this company to hire a Ross service coordinator. So as you all know, our Ross service coordinator left on March 17th to take a job with the state. She's in school in a graduate program. in Worcester, and she was offered an opportunity to work in the field that she's studying. So great person, did a great job with us, and we're working hard to make sure that position is filled. So I'm working with Express staffing on that as well.
Okay. Do you want to just give us a little update on our trials and tribulations of trying to fill the assistant executive director position? Because that's one of the board and your highest
Yeah.
priorities.
Yeah.
It's in your goals.
Yes.
We know how hard you're working.
Yes.
Great, you're having an executive assistant that's, helping you dig out.
Yeah.
But we're missing a unit of senior management.
Yes.
Yes. So I know you were looking at somebody really interesting last month,
We
and
did have, we had an interview committee, Mr. Burke was on that committee, Janice Bennett was on the committee. The leasing director from Watertown was on the committee, as well as, myself and Elena Choi. And we interviewed 3 really good candidates, very strong candidates. And the one that we wanted to make an offer to, withdrew his application. Said, the salary is a lateral move for him, and that it wouldn't be a good, decision for him to do that. He's looking for more money. So we suspended the search and we're starting all over again. I'm working with Express Staffing and will be working with Mass Narrow perhaps. They have a mechanism for recruiting. So I'm going to reach out to them and get some help that way. It's really so important for me to fill this position. Michael has really made a difference and has relieved some of the stress that I didn't realize I was under by completing some very important tasks that I just did not have time to
so
do.
there's not enough hours in the
Not
day.
enough hours. And you just get distracted. Folks are asking questions, and a lot of the tasks you have to bear down and pay attention to. So, so I'm really enjoying working with Michael, and perhaps, I'm hopeful that he will be, as we go through another round of interviews, that he would join that process.
Great. And before we go on to the next agenda, items, I just want to comment in Jeff's direction that our big challenge has been, ever since I've been here, and I think all the way back to the days that Cheryl was a lieutenant commissioner, in the beginning, is that we're very heavily constrained by HLC on what we can pay for positions. And it's not enough to attract people, who have the qualifications to be an assistant executive director on an incredibly complicated job. It's bad enough if you just have one program, as you probably know from your own, business. And the complexity of the job and the regulations and everything is very hard. We have 3 or 4, depending on how you want to count them, with different sets of rules and regulations. It's just, and anytime we get anybody good, whether it's an executive director or an assistant executive director, and they get some experience under their belt, we can't give them a raise commensurate with their improved, talent and qualifications and capabilities. And they get hired away from us by somebody else, usually in the private sector, sometimes in the private sector. So I say all this just because one of the things is the commissioners are supposed to talk to each other in public and not behind closed doors, due to the open meeting law. But if there's anything in your Rolodex, that are people out there is a good candidate, but not looking for a job. Those are the ones we're having a hard time finding that would be motivated by, this kind of a job, which is an incredible learning experience, but it's just really hard to recruit them, even find them, we use executive, recruiters to help us out. It's just hard to find people.
Yeah. So.
Reg, will you educate me? What are the salary?
Why don't we do that afterwards? And I think you should talk to Cheryl too about that, but yeah, absolutely. We can give you the constraints that we're working with.
Okay. Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure, go.
How was, or why was the Wellesley executive search group selected as opposed to any search group? Do they specialize in housing
Yeah.
authorities? Do they
That's a
specialize in
great
real estate?
question. They were, actually, I reached out to Robert Half. I reached to another company called Ultimate Staffing. And I may have reached out to another one, but these people that I reached out to in Wellesley, were very receptive to my inquiries. I looked them up and did some research on, what they were about and was impressed by that. I spoke with the administrative assistant on the telephone and was very impressed with her friendliness and her responsiveness to my questions. And they weren't as pricey as Robert Half or the big companies, but I felt that they were local. I almost felt like they were mom and pop, and that's not true. They're very professional folks. But I felt that, I could relate to them. And I could connect with them about, and they understood what I needed and not just send someone to me, but understood what I was really looking for. So the candidates that they sent my way, the administrative assistant wrote very thorough narratives on each candidate, not just sending me their resume, but she also wrote a very thorough narrative on each of the candidates based on her discussion with them. So I felt that they were doing a very good job of vetting out those candidates. So I'm very pleased with them.
Okay.
Yeah,
The other comment I would make is it sounds like you've historically had a very difficult time finding somebody for this spot.
Finding and retention.
Right. So in my opinion, that tells you that maybe we're going about it incorrectly and we're not gonna find anybody
Mhm.
on a consistent basis.
Mm.
So one school of thought may be, and it's not ideal, but presumably this person would have, roles and responsibilities.
Mhm.
What if we used the staffing agency and just hired one person for two of them and another person for two? If we're paying this person 60,000 or whatever the salary would be, we know that's our budget.
Mhm.
And we piece it together using consultants, and then it's on the staffing agency. I know it's not ideal, but it sounds like we're spending a lot of time and effort finding somebody that doesn't exist.
Well, when you put all that effort in and then they don't, what happened just happened. So
I mean, I know in my business, we've started doing more, or the other school of thought is maybe you find somebody quite good, but they only want to do part-time, because they have something else. And you can pay them, instead of getting somebody that's okay for 40 hours a week, you pay somebody really good for 24 hours a week and you get the same level of productivity. So I think we might need to start thinking a little bit more about how we're going about sourcing this, because I mean, I'm new, but if we've tried for many times and it's not working out, well, that's telling you something that we're probably going about it the wrong way.
So I agree with you, and I'm glad you said that. And my suggestion is we just make this an action item for you to follow up with Cheryl and probably myself, because two commissioners can get together and do things, but three cannot. Maybe we tell you what's gone wrong, and what hasn't been working. And we can follow up on these ideas. Cause Cheryl goes back like 2 or 3 years, and then she took a 15-year hiatus or 10-year hiatus, but I can fill in. It applies to sourcing executive directors as well. It's just been a huge challenge, not just for us, but all the small housing authorities are having the same problem. Wellesley just lost a great guy again because he was hired away for a better salary somewhere. And now have an interim executive director again, which happens to be Steve Merritt, in case anybody didn't know that. So, to be continued. Then let's make that a follow-up, and let's go back to the agenda, and you have a couple draft policies in the pack. So why don't you tee those up here?
So, the first one is the tenant, participation policy. This has been brought to you, for 3 meetings now.
Mhm.
And I'd like the board to consider, voting and approving this policy. We can always amend the policy, if we need to amend it. But this is a policy that's mandated by not only EOHLC, but HUD. The policy also reflects a lot of the Code of Massachusetts regulations. And where applicable, it also reflects the Code of Federal Regulations as well, CFR. It's important to have the policy in place because we really need to provide guidance to our residents who are actively participating in our programs.
Okay. Any thoughts or discussion on part of the commissioners? Are you ready to
I'm ready.
vote on it?
And I
You think it's as
didn't
good as
see
it's gonna
anything
get? It's
really
not gonna
wrong
be
with it.
perfect, but it'll probably need some adjusting, but,
Yeah,
okay, so,
so I move to accept it.
go ahead. Penny moves, go ahead.
Second.
Second by Jim Flanagan. Any final discussion? Okay, I will call, for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, and so it passes unanimously. And one of the things that you made me do is go look at, our, on the website is a 15 or 16 current policies that we've updated over your tenure that are there, and, we should probably post this policy there as soon as, and we should put approved by the board at the top, so we know who's track of it, and then we can come back into it in 5 years if we haven't already.
And as I said, as I continue to meet with the LTOs, and if there's things in here that we want to amend, we certainly can amend this policy, bring it back to you.
Please do, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes some of the changes or improvements come out of actually using the policy, not just sort of a theoretical discussion like we've had for several meetings here.
And then
So,
one of the things you'll notice on our website is the policies that you cannot open up and look at. Those policies have not been approved or by the board or
Yeah.
updated, so we're making sure that we are going through all of our policies. We have this waste removal and recycling policy here for your review.
Yeah.
And we're working on our ACOG and our housekeeping
Which is
policy
huge,
and
yeah.
our resident
Yeah.
handbook. So we're really working on updating our policies and getting them posted on.
And I
the
know
website.
that's a top priority. You
Yeah.
think that's really, as a former tenant, a resident here, it's really important to have updated policies and clear, kind of guidelines for everybody to know how
Yes.
things are supposed to
It
happen.
gives guidance to our staff.
Yeah,
And it's transparency for our residents,
Right.
so our residents know what is
Yeah.
expected of us, so it's very important.
all right, so,
The
next one here.
Is the waste removal and recycling policy. This has come about because we, not necessarily at Linden or Chambers, but really for
Seabeds and Cove, right?
federal programs, Captain Robert Cook Drive and High Rock Estate. Seabeds, not so much.
Mhm.
But what folks are doing is, have engaged in the practice of throwing, away items curbside. And, or they're overstuffing our dumpsters. And it's creating a nuisance. I'm getting complaints from the greater community about what the, property looks like. No one's really corrected the behavior. Residents seem to think it's okay to put something out on the curb and that our guys will pick it up and take it to the RTS. And that's costing us a lot of money to do that. So far, we have spent, almost $5,000 on, RTS fees right now. So we're spending a lot of money picking up items that the residents themselves can take to the RTS and dump and dispose of. We also want to get them in the habit, and express that this is not appropriate to do. You can't just leave your trash out on the side of the road. Not only that, but we are requesting our residents to put away their trash bins and recycling bins. Do not leave them out on the road constantly. So this is an attempt. It's pretty heavy-handed. And we are going to go over it maybe softening it up. We're working with, Greg, Director of Maintenance and Facilities, and, Senior Public Housing, State Manager, Blair. So we're developing this, it's very important that we get this policy in place before the summer. Because it's just a bad practice that we have to stop. That's the
Can I
purpose
ask a
of
quick
getting this
question?
in.
Yes, go ahead.
When I was president of the LTO, we made sure we had a spring and fall cleanup. And this very issue was an issue then.
Mhm.
So by doing that, it gave people a chance to gather their stuff, they know it's coming, boom. They
Yep.
put out a chair or whatever. Then in the fall, it happens again. And this was eliminating people piling furniture and different things because they knew it was coming. And I've tried to get you guys to maybe do it again, because it takes less
I
money.
see Cheryl taking a note and Greg is
twice a
over
year,
there,
you know,
so,
Instead of
yeah.
5 times.
but, let me go back to the commissioners. Any comments
I
or
have a
questions?
question.
Yeah,
Who developed the trash management plan?
Who
For
developed the
the
policy?
waste.
who wrote
removal?
the policy?
Who
Our
developed,
new, executive assistant, Michael Dorsett, developed the policy.
and who was reviewed by the maintenance?
Right, yes,
I mean, it looks thorough to me. My next question is, do all the tenant leases, will they all reference this?
exactly, correct.
They will. They
Well,
don't
they
have-
do.
They
Uh,
do,
we-
but it's not as explicit as this. Where I'm going with this is the only way to enforce it is if people are violating it, they get a lease
That's
violation.
correct.
And if they get more than lease violations, they can be evicted.
That's correct.
So that's the leverage. It seems very reasonable. I know people in Needham, if you leave your trash out, it's not gonna get picked up. You have to bring your barrels in or you get fined. So I think it's the obligation of people in the community just to uphold, normal best practices. So I would be supportive of approving this, making sure it's clearly referenced in the lease, and then when people don't adhere to it, making sure that they get a, lease violation.
Right. So our lease does prohibit, our lease does have language that says you can't do that. And so, but we had nothing really to enforce aside from the lease. We don't want to we want to set a policy in place so that we're not making up a practice for people to follow.
Yeah, no, I agree,
Yeah.
and I think it's pretty explicit as to what is allowed and not allowed, and so I'm
So-
supportive of that.
Anything else, Jeff? So, one thing on your list of things that you might be a new commissioner, most of the new commissioners before haven't had this interest, but might actually like to get a copy of our standard lease. Would you be interested in that? We can make that available to
Yeah,
you.
I mean, I'd be happy to look at it. I'm not an attorney. so-
It's just prescribed by the state or the feds, but
The other question I had, and I think it was raised earlier, is somebody, I think it was Marlene mentioned that some of the barrels, the tops don't work.
Mhm.
In my experience, if you talk to the provider, they should replace those
Mhm.
free of charge.
Yep.
So I'm
And
not sure if that's an accurate statement. I'd like, if I could, to have Greg comment on that.
Greg, please introduce yourself to Jeff here, by the way.
We can go out there now.
No, we don't have to, we don't have to go on.
Greg, who are you for Jeff's base?
I'm Greg Gillis, I'm the Director of Maintenance Facilities. I've had no reports of any bad trash barrels. Squirrels do eat into it occasionally.
That's a separate issue, yes,
And
true,
then
But
Mr.
Misfunctioning or
that they don't open, the old ones that were never replaced.
Marlene, I haven't recognized you,
That's
please.
pretty helpful.
No.
I thought I got rid of most of,
Ask to be recognized if you want
most
to be
of the
helpful.
metal
Thank you.
patching ones. There were the
I
metal-
want you to be helpful and I want you to ask to be recognized if you wish to do so, please. Thank you.
I think
okay.
I got rid of most of the ones that latched.
Okay.
Well,
Hang on a second, I haven't so,
And if barrels aren't being picked up, just call the office, then I'll know.
so one of the things we tried,
I mean, we increased the amount of barrels from
Yeah.
5 to 6 everywhere on Chambers Street.
so, for Jeff's benefit, again, one of the things we try not to do is have problems fester for weeks between board members, meetings, and then they get raised here the first time. So the protocol for all such problems, and the first question I will often ask is, have you put in a work order? Because they're very efficient about clearing, they like to have 0 open work orders every month in our monthly reports here. And we want this to happen every day and not wait to come in and say something. You can come to a board member and say, I put in a work order and it's never been taken care of, or I keep putting it in and it keeps not getting taken care of. But if Greg is saying, I'm hearing about this for the first time, that's not the way to do it, and is to bring it to this meeting and have him say that.
I'll make sure he comes back and takes care of
And
it.
what helps Greg keep track of things, and I'm sure you do this in all your properties, is you gotta manage it. So you gotta put in the work order, and then we can track it and make sure that we respond on a timely basis and that's resolved. And then if you start getting lots of unresolved work orders, we sometimes have problems down 1 or 2 maintenance guys, that becomes a board issue. We need to get more funding for maintenance or something like that. So anyway,
Okay.
so yes, briefly, please.
Yes, very briefly, as far as, I'm referring to the older barrels that were not replaced.
Did you put a work order request in?
They sent a letter saying they're replacing
Yes or no?
all the barrels.
Yeah,
No,
because would you do that, please? Thank you. Because you put it in writing, then Eric can do something about it.
So that everybody understands.
No, I don't want to talk about any further. No, I don't want to talk about, excuse me, no.
Live here, use it, they drive.
Excuse me, Marlene, please. You are out of order. If there's something that needs to be done that is a maintenance issue,
Thank you.
Marlene, did you hear what I just said?
Not out of order.
You're talking over to me, so it makes me feel that you didn't hear what I said. Tell me you heard what I just said. What did I?
With you, I don't think
I'm not asking you whether you agreed. I'm saying, if you have something like that, please don't continue to talk about it here. Please put in a work order.
Oh, I was allowed to comment. That's what
You
I-
have commented, and your comment is,
Cycle.
you haven't put in a work order.
Fine. I think that people that
Marlene,
don't live here shouldn't
please.
be dumping in the
I
recycle.
heard you say that last time around.
I'll put in a word.
Thank you. I agree with you.
I'll call the police because it's illegal. They're
No, I'm not
supposed
at,
to be used.
Marlene, please, stop.
It's illegal.
Can you stop, please? Okay, thank you. All right,
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
just
One
wanted-
moment,
one moment here.
quick moment, and this has been bugging me for a while, and I'm gonna say it too, facing you. There is something called a chain of command.
Yep.
And
No,
anybody-
I'm sorry. I don't want to go into that right now. I don't want to go.
I want
I get it.
That comes published with,
We can put that on the agenda next time. We need to do a reminder, but make that as a
That's it.
suggestion.
that's all. I'm
Go
gonna
ahead,
say.
back to the policy.
So, Mr. Chair, I just also wanted to add that we are in our first year. Is this our first year, Greg? Our first year with our new waste removal company.
Yes,
And they've been very responsive to us. Oftentimes going above and beyond when they are picking up TVs and
Mhm.
things like that are being left curbside or at the dumpster, but we work with them very well. We have finalized the disagreement that we had with the previous
No,
company. And so those barrels are being removed.
okay.
So all we have is our new company that we are happy with working with.
All right, good. So, any comments on the policy from the commissioners? I have one question, which is, is this in our packet for the first time today?
The waste removal
Yeah.
policy is in your packet for the first time.
And have you, solicited and received any comments from the tenants association or tenants in general on
It's
the
always
policy?
my practice to put it in your packet first.
Yeah,
And then follow up with meeting with the residents.
all right.
For their comments, and also to have a comment period
Right.
that they can.
So you're proposing that we're doing that now, and, what's the deadline for receiving all comments before the next board meeting?
Oh, well, the deadline, I hadn't thought about that exact deadline, because our May meeting is going to be a big meeting, and I'm not sure I want to include this in
Okay.
that meeting. And if that's the case, the deadline will be by, the end of May for
Mhm.
comments.
Okay,
And then for your board approval in June.
all right, great. Okay, so, hopefully anybody, looking for any and all comments. And they should be, put in writing, by the way. They should, don't send an email or handwrite a comment or whatever it is, so we can capture it here. Okay, great. Moving along. We're shifting gears here to the Preservation and Redevelopment Initiative and various items, starting with the Linden Street redevelopment project. Well, everybody might have noticed that it was a pretty short report from our partner, HSC and Peabody. And that's because, as I think Jim reported last month, we actually submitted a $57 million funding proposal to HLC on time, by the 28th of, 27th, 6th of February, 28th, whatever it was. And then it goes into a black hole for 3 or 4 months. And, it's fully funded, in terms of, theoretically, in terms of funding sources. We still have, a problem getting the Seabeds Way Faircloth units, kind of disentangled from the Seabed project in time to be there for this, and that's still being worked on. And there's one other issue I'm gonna bring up in a moment, but for the first time in 2.5, almost, 3 years, there's sort of been a bit of a lull. I'm gonna say this, I've said this many times, everybody knows this, but I'll say it again. We've been told by our partners, their development partners, and also others, that there's a backlog of worthy projects that haven't been funded yet with tax credit funding, that are in there for the second or third time in this funding round. And it's not impossible, but it's unlikely that we're going to get funded this go round. It would be a bit of a very unusual thing if that happened, but not impossible. But you gotta get in line, you gotta basically, you're knocking on the door with pretty much a shovel-ready project. And then you have to kind of wait your turn. We've also heard it informally that, that HLC has more money that comes out of the Affordable Homes Act, the $5.2 billion bill that was passed last August by the Healy administration. Thank you, Governor Healy. Thank you, Denise Garlick and everybody else, and Becca Roush, who worked on that. And so they got money, more money than before. So they're thinking, rather than waiting until a whole year to do the winter 26 round, they're going to do a mid-year round. They call it a mini round. If we pass muster, even if we're turned down, we can be invited into the mini round. So, which means that by the end of the year in this mini round, before they start the winter 2026 round, which is November of 2025, we, would have a better shot to maybe win that. And they will report back to us of any flaws or defects they think they have in our current proposal, though our partners are feeling like it's very strong, and it's just a lot of competition, not enough funding. We also have with the craziness that's going on in Washington with Doge and Musk and everything there, whatever your politics are supporting or against that, it's definitely going on, and we're fearful that it's going to be affecting funding sources, but it hasn't yet. But that's a new risk factor that's grown up since the election here. So any questions on the part of the commissioners about that?
Regis,
Yeah,
sure. Timing of, so with the submission we have now,
yeah.
we expect to hear something late May?
At the earliest, and it's more likely June, and there's a big press release, big to-do the governor's office makes, and they bring all the winners in, and they have a big, publicity event, and with the governor and everybody, and that's maybe probably the first couple weeks of June.
It's probably no later than mid-June there.
Yeah,
And then that second milestone, we
kicks
know,
right on the heels of that, kicks off, yeah.
okay, kicks off, but
And then, they usually make the decisions before they start the full regular winter 2020 round, and that kicks off in November. Just like it did November 25, sometime in November, they haven't announced the date. And they do it all over again, so, so the game's afoot. And we're in the hunt at this point, after a lot of work and effort on everybody's part, so, 57 million.
That's the affordable home project money that's
No,
available?
no, this is the total project cost.
Yes, but I mean, this new project that the governor just, instituted, this affordable home project.
It's not a project, it's a housing bond bill that was passed last August.
Okay.
And in it, again, for Jeff's benefit, so that's why I'm allowing for the question here, but in it are State Representative Denise Garlick, who just retired, sadly, because she's been one of our strongest friends over the years, and Becca Roush, our state senator, who's still there, got us $4 million of earmarks in that bill, Jeff, billion in that, which is, up there in the same level of kind of earmarks that Cambridge Housing Authority, bigger housing authorities got. That was a lot, huge amount of money. So we've got, some of that money deployed for the Linden Street project, as well as the town's very generous 5.5 million CPA funding award that we got last August, a year ago, basically in 2024 town meeting. We have 4 million of the 5.5 million were needed to make the bottom line numbers work here. So, and a bunch of other funding sources that we won't get into tonight.
I thought it was for 2 billion, but you mentioned something about 5 billion. But this.
So please stay and ask me afterwards here, but it's 5.2 billion is for the whole state is the number they got to us. Yeah, 4 million is the part that was earmarked for the Needham Housing Authority for Linden Street.
How much?
4 million.
Fine.
Okay, onward. Now this next bullet here, RFP for project basing 20 to 30 of NHA's Section 8 vouchers. As most of us know, we have 123 Section 8 vouchers, and most of us know what Section 8 vouchers allow you to do. They're called mobile vouchers. In the context that I'm bringing up in there, which means that when one becomes available, when it no longer is needed by somebody who has it, then there's a waiting list for that and a whole process of awarding that to the next person who's eligible in the waiting list, and that person accepting it. And then with a Section 8 mobile voucher, that person then can go to any landlord anywhere in the United States and rent an apartment if that landlord will accept that Needham Housing Authority Section 8 voucher. So it's not, you don't have to just use it in Needham. You could use it in Norwood or
Anywhere in the country.
anywhere in the country. You can go down to Florida and rent something down there next to, but that's the way that Section 8, part of the Section 8 program works. There is a mechanism, and it's one that we've been planning to use ever since we got going with the Linden Chambers project. Now it's just the Linden Terrace project. I'm going to mention something about the terrace in a moment here. And that is, you have to have subsidy units for us to maintain the very, very low income housing that we've been providing right along. It's very hard to have that level of income. The average income for people who live here today is in like $400 a month of rent, averaged across everything. And you have to then get the Section 8 voucher to make up the difference between that, what the tenants can afford to pay, which is not more than 30% of their income, and what it costs to maintain the place, and including our new building. So one of the techniques you do is you can take up 20 to 30 of those mobile vouchers. And as they free up, you can then project base them, which means that you, rather than being a mobile voucher for somebody who's gonna come off the waiting list next and go live in the Florida, it's attached to the new Linden Terrace building and stays with it. And it ensures that you have the subsidy, the annual rental subsidy that will then make the numbers work on a P&L point of view and operations and maintenance point of view, and you have enough money to fix everything and keep the property up and not let potholes like this in the back grow and not have enough money to fix them. So the process of doing that, and I'm in briefing the board on the first time on that, I'm gonna pass something out. And this is really an information thing because it falls within the purview of the executive director and our subcommittee, which is the executive director, the vice chair, and myself, who's sort of providing guidance for everything. So the process for doing that is that you have to put out an RFP that says we are planning to project base our 20 to 30 of our Section 8 vouchers and advertise it like just, bidding it out on Combuy, putting RFP out and accepting bids and then evaluating the bids from developers who say, I can use those project-based, I could do that for you, okay? Now, what you do is you are allowed to say, the developer, the qualifications of the developer to do those, to win this RFP are that you have to be able to do it with a building of such and so type and such and so neighborhood in Needham, Massachusetts, yada, 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 which happens to be the description of the Linden Terrace Phase 1A and 1B developments we're going forward with here. You can't just, you have to go through that. It's everybody knows in the industry that that's what you have to do. And it usually turns out, when you write a legal RFP and when it's correctly written, which is a specialty that nobody in the Needham Housing Authority has, then one of the bidders can be a company called AHSC Peabody Developer LLC. And they might be the only proposer, and then it gets awarded to them. However, they can't help us with that, putting that RFP out. We can't even discuss it with them, because it's a conflict of interest. They could be ruled ineligible to bid on it. So we actually have to do it ourselves. And so having educated myself all that, I put out a all points bulletin to my Rolodex here. I guess I have an extra, all your copy and pass them all right. So, and yeah, send me back one here. And talk to a bunch of different possible consultants. Checked with CHAPA, they have a very good consultant, database. And then interviewed and wound up with this outfit called Tag Associates, who has all the qualifications to do what we need to do and has done it many, many, many times before. I've interviewed them, Cheryl and Jim, correct me, you talked to them as well, right? Or we haven't?
Not Tag.
We haven't talked Tag, so we're going to do that. And then Cheryl, make this a final decider here. She is our Chief Procurement Officer with a CPPO certification here, so she does everything by the book, and I'm very glad about this. But if we get a proposal with terms and conditions that we like, and as long as it's under $10,000, which is what we've got from them so far, and this is their proposed scope of services, which I've gone through. I have a half a dozen different examples of these RFPs that I've collected over the last few months, and so they're all pretty much the same. I'm going to basically have set up an interview with Cheryl and Jim. And if things pass muster, then, we'll probably hire them to basically write the RFP. And they run the procurement process. They make sure we don't foot fault on any of these complicated Section 8 now regulations. They make sure it plays nicely with our Section 8 administration plan, which Cheryl's in another one of the plans that Cheryl's in the process of updating, but doesn't have enough hours in the day to do. We have a Section 8 administration plan 2015, which dates back to when Dedham Housing Authority was running our Section 8 program on a third-party contractor basis here. Well, you're taking it back in-house, and that was a very good move that has generated more administrative fee for us that we're using to do things. So that's what's going on. Any questions from the board members? So, unless anybody objects, we'll continue on that path and treat it as a board information item. It's obviously, and,
I have a quick question.
sure.
On the vouchers, once it gets converted from Section 8 to the vouchers, how long are those vouchers good for a resident that, let's say?
So this is, these don't get converted. They get converted from Section 8 mobile vouchers, which can be used to, project-based. They're attached to the building, the Linden Terrace building. And so it pays for the subsidy for one apartment. Each of the 20 to 30 will pay for 20, 30 apartments. We're getting fair cloth units from Seabeds. We're getting 40 or 39 fair cloth units coming over from Seabeds, no longer needed there. And those are going to be attached to the Linden Terrace apartments, another 340. And we're getting like 15 or 20 DHCD or HLC will give us, they have a inventory of unused vouchers. They'll throw some more in the pot. And what it means is that not all of the units, so we're building ultimately 136 units, but most of them will have vouchers attached to them, and that will allow us to rent to very low income people, as we have been doing right along since this development was
Will
built.
their rent stay the same, formula for more than 3 years?
The rents are formulas change with Section 8, but they're very similar. And then any existing tenants are sort of grandfathered, so that to the extent that, particularly if the rent is higher, when you recalculate it with the Section 8 rules, as I understand it, not because I'm an expert, but as it's been explained to me, then there's an adjustment made so that residents who, temporarily move out in order to build the building and then move back in, they won't be paying more than they would have if there was never any redevelopment
How
here.
long is it good for us?
Oh, no, it's good. It stays with the unit. So once the person in the unit moves somewhere else, then the voucher stays with the unit. It doesn't move with the person.
So they lose in essence.
Well, presumably they're moving somewhere else that has a subsidy attached to it, unless they win the lottery or something like that.
But once they're housed, how long is it good for?
It's good for as long as they're there, as long as they pay the rent. So as long as you pay the rent, which is 30%,
Basically,
very similar formula, but a little different, and existing tenants are grandfathered. Let's not table that for now, but because that obviously something,
yeah.
once we get funded, just coming back to that. So not probably this June, but maybe my next November, and it becomes real, then we'll rev everything up again. And we'll basically have tenant meetings with not Reg Foster, the amateur expert, but real people who really know what needs to be done. And with a real tenant relocation plan and answers that, I'm just telling you as I understand it here, but I've been assured of that. Cheryl's been part of those assurances. And obviously that's,
It will no longer be state, it'll be federal.
It'll be now federal Section 8 from state. Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead very briefly.
Well, the project-based, what happens if you can't get these conversions for the number of units or combining with fair cloth?
We will. Okay, all right. So, I just want to mention in public here, because a couple of people have raised this. You may have noticed we've taken to calling the project the Linden Terrace Phase 1A and 1B. Why is that? Because it's a new, housing development, and calling it a street is not, is not what you do. You come up with some mostly fancy names, the Moderna, and so we thought about that when we were starting to actually submit the funding request and realized that something was gonna get baked in, and we didn't want to be a street. And then I did some research and discovered that what we have been calling ever since I've been here, and maybe as long as Cheryl's been here and Penny's been here, it actually was called Linden Terrace when it was developed. And somehow that fell by the wayside, before my time. And we said, gee, that's kind of a nice name, and, maybe that's what we should do. So we did. So it was nothing more complicated than that. So, let's go to the next item on the agenda, wherever my agenda went. Here it is. We have put in, as everybody knows, a 3.2, well, we put in originally a $3.5 million request for Seabeds and Cook funding to redevelop both Seabeds Way and Captain Robert Cook, not redevelop it, but modernize and preserve it. The town CPC received another $3.5 million proposal. And it didn't have enough CPA funds. And then the proposal was from the Charles River Center to build a new multifamily housing complex up at East Militia Heights, right across from their campus, off of Central Avenue there. An excellent project, serving a different constituency than we do, but just as needy, if not more needy, which is the disabled. And an amazing proposal, because it's 50-50 abled people and disabled people. So it's actually approximately half of the 85 units they're doing up there are going to be for regular folk who need affordable housing with no disability whatsoever. And the other half are going to be disabled folk that the Charles River Center serves and need support, which they have right next door. But they are higher function enough so they can live independently in the community, all in the same housing complex, which is the sort of modern way of doing things that we aren't doing in the housing authority. Wish we could, but we can't, given what we got to work with so far. So the dilemma was there was not enough CPC funds go around, and then we made the dilemma worse, because it turned out that we had to ask for nearly $10 million for Seabeds and Captain Robert Cook, because we lost our eligibility for the Section 22 streamlined voluntary conversion funding program, and had to revert to Section 18, which has a good news and bad news thing. It requires that you upfront do a lot more renovation, i.e. spend more money. That's done on day one than the Section 22 program did. So all of a sudden, the hole in our budget was $10 million instead of $3.5 million. So as a result of all of this, and this is now a done deal, but those of you like Ross has attended most of these meetings. The result of this is we made the difficult decision a month or two ago, as we discussed at the board meeting, to withdraw our the portion of our CPA funding request for Captain Robert Cook, even though things are really needed there. That overall property condition is rated as fair, and Seabeds is poor, and Seabeds is fair, so they both need it. But the only way we could, we need those Faircloth units to make the Linden Street Terrace project work, and the only way to do that is to do one of the two, do them sequentially, in other words. And it turns out that if you do Seabeds first, which needs relatively less improvements to meet, it's called the 20-year capital needs assessment test. Turns out that we could just barely make the funding stack for that with 3.5 million from CPA and Needham CPA funding, and there's enough funding to award another $2.7 million to the CRC project. And that's what the CPC committee voted to do on the 19th of March. So I don't think that was reported at last month's meeting because it was, you did do it, yeah. And now we went to the finance committee in their first meeting in April. It was April 2nd or 3rd or something like that. Finance committee gave a unanimous thumbs up to the 3.5 million, which is the first time